campaign donations. The Citizens United decision cleared the way for super PACs. These organizations are allowed to raise and spend unlimited amounts of money to promote a candidate or publicize a cause, but they may not directly contribute to a candidate or coordinate with a campaign. In the 2012 election, there were over 500 registered super PACs, and 41 of them spent over $500,000. The largest 7 had spent over $256 million by the end of August, one of the reasons that the 2012 election was the most expensive ever, clocking in at around $6 billion. Now, this sounds like a lot of money, right? It is. Gimme it. But a little context. The total spent on House and Senate races was around $3.6 billion, which was less than half of what Americans spend annually on potato chips. So when you look at it this way, the amount we spend on elections doesn't seem like so much, which may make us rethink the idea that money is corrupting American politics. Or maybe not. Maybe potato chips are corrupting American politics. Certainly corrupting my belly. American political campaigns are big and high stakes and raise questions about the influence of money in politics that are tough to answer. On the one hand, it does seem like there's the potential for very rich people to have a lot of influence over elections. On the other hand, limiting a person's ability to register his or her preference for a candidate through spending on that candidate does seem like a limitation on their political speech. One of the arguments for limits on campaign contributions is that forcing candidates to raise money in small amounts from a large number of donors will make them reach out to larger numbers of constituents, and appealing to large numbers is the essence of democracy. But it's also time-consuming for a politician to reach out to all those potential donors, and congressmen already spend a considerable amount of time raising money when they should be legislating and watching Real Housewives and eating Little Caesars. There's a lot to do, but this is the system we have, and unless Congress passes a law limiting campaign expenditures or shortening the campaign season, we can expect campaigns to remain long and get more and more expensive. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Crash Course Government and Politics is elected officials is Hi, I'm Craig, and this is Crash Course Government and Politics, and today we're going to talk about parties. Woo! Yeah! No, not those kind of parties. We're talking about political parties, which can be a lot less fun. Woo. So today we're talking about why we have political parties and the role of parties in American politics. But before we dive into the pool, some would say a cesspool, that is political parties, let's have a definition. Political party, a team of politicians, activists, and voters whose goal is to win control of government. So kind of an important point. The goal of a party is to control government, and in the US, that means electing people who agree with and usually are members of the party. So above everything else, parties exist to win elections. Parties don't mainly focus on influencing policies, although particular policies are often associated with particular parties. Influencing elected officials is mainly the job of interest groups, who we'll talk about soon. For now, let's keep in mind that political parties and interest groups are not the same thing. So let's look at 3 reasons why we have political parties. 1, I don't know. 2, I don't know. 3, I don't know. I do know, I'll tell you in a second. First, we create political parties to facilitate collective action in the electoral process. Given that parties exist to win elections, this is probably the main reason we have them. But what does facilitate collective action in the electoral process mean exactly? Basically, it means that parties make it easier for voters to form groups that will vote in certain ways. Here's an example, albeit one that overgeneralizes a little bit. Just come on, just go with it. In general, Republican candidates support policies that are more friendly to business. So if you're a businessman, you know that affiliating yourself with the Republican Party is probably going to benefit you. The second reason given for forming political parties is that they facilitate policymaking. This reasoning applies to elected members who belong to political parties, not to voters. So membership in a party allows politicians to work together. It's easier for Democrats to form alliances with other Democrats, and sometimes these alliances have the added benefit of strengthening the party. Party affiliation can help legislators from different places work together. For example, common Republicanness should make it easier for a Republican from rural Kansas to work with another Republican from suburban Florida. Sometimes, though, party ideology can prevent even members of the same party from working together, as happened in 2008 when Republicans couldn't agree on whether the government should bail out struggling banks. A third, and I must say not altogether convincing reason why we have political parties is to deal with the problem of politicians' ambition. According to this idea, parties provide a structure, maybe even a career ladder for politicians, so that they're not always acting in their own self-interest. The fact that the party provides different leadership possibilities and some sense of discipline prevents ambitious politicians with largely similar views from competing against each other, like, say, 16 candidates running for president on the same party. Just wouldn't happen. Ever. So that's why political parties exist. But what do? Well, they have 5 main functions in the US, and I'll leave it up to you to decide which, if any, is the most important. The eagle doesn't get to decide. Eagle doesn't get to decide anything. So here's the list. 1. Recruit candidates. 2. Nominate candidates. 3. Get out the vote. 4. Facilitate electoral choice. 5. Influence national government. The first thing that parties have to do if they want to win elections is find candidates. This is a two-step process involving recruiting and nominating. We've already mentioned that in order to be a good candidate for office, you generally have to have an unblemished personal record, like me, or at least be really good at heartfelt apologies. I don't have an unblemished record, and I'm very sorry about that. Also, you need the ability to raise money. Of course, in order to avoid any problems with campaign financing, it's helpful to have money yourself. But why spend your own money if you can convince people to give money to your campaign? Maybe print out some hats. Merch works. Merch helps raise money. There are lots of people who want to run for office, although there's some debate about whether we're really getting the best candidates. The pay isn't great, and neither is the prestige anymore. And then there's the scrutiny that a run for office puts you and your family through. Parties play an important role in sifting through all the people who want to run and picking those who have the best chance of winning. Nomination is the process through which a potential candidate is actually chosen to represent a particular party in an election. When we talk about nominations in the US, we're mostly talking about the presidency, because that's the only office that goes through the formal nomination process. But technically, congressmen and senators are nominated by their parties to run as well. There are 3 ways that a candidate for president can be nominated. In the old days, presidential candidates were nominated at a convention, or caucus, which are gatherings of party members governed by rules. Conventions still occur every 4 years, but they're largely ceremonial these days because presidential candidates are actually nominated during the primaries. Let's go to the thought bubble. Primary elections are held to choose candidates who will then run in the later general election. Political parties decide when and how primaries will be held and who the candidates will be. These are the elections that pit Democrat against Democrat and Republican against Republican to see who will face off in November. Primaries can either be open or closed. Most states have closed primaries, which means that only registered voters of a particular party can vote in that election. So in a state with closed primaries like New York, only Democrats can vote in the Democratic primary. And since in many districts one party is overwhelmingly dominant, the primary winner is very likely to win the general election too. In states with open primaries, members of any party can vote in the primary, which sounds great because it encourages more participation, but it also opens up opportunities for mischief. For example, if there's a strong Republican candidate up against a weak Republican candidate in a state with open primaries, Democrats can turn up and vote for the weak Republican in the hopes that if he wins, he will have less of a chance in the general election running against a Democrat. Sneaky. In presidential elections, the winner of a primary election will be assigned a certain number of party delegates. Delegates are non-elected party members who actually nominate the candidates at the convention. The delegates are usually pledged to vote for the candidate who won the primary in their state, at least on the first ballot, and majority rules in nominating. This is why we see so much election coverage of primaries and why some states, like New Hampshire, try so hard to have their primaries early. Once a candidate has sewn up enough delegates, he or she becomes the nominee, and the convention serves largely as a formality. Although the primary system is more democratic than the convention, it still has problems. Even though there's more opportunity for participation, that doesn't mean people actually participate. In fact, only about 25% of those eligible to vote in primary elections actually do, and these tend to be the more ideologically extreme members of the parties, because to them, winning elections matters most. So if only partisan voters show up, we tend to get uber-partisan candidates. And because they have to win bruising primaries before they even get to the general election, these candidates tend to be aggressive and uncompromising. That's good when you're competing in an election, but not so good when you're trying to work with other people to craft policies, or in very rare cases, legislation. This is why many people think that primaries add to political polarization in the US. Thanks, Thought Bubble. You got my vote. There's a third way that a person can become a candidate, but it's a long and dangerous path. Hey, Stan, zoom the camera in as I say that. It's a long and dangerous path. A person can run as an independent.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so we have our short class today. We have a debate, and we need to make sure that we have enough time for that. And if we have some more time, let more people participate by having a class debate with time remaining. And so let me stop the share here and make sure that I also don't accidentally end the class by clicking. And let me make sure that you can see what I can see. So we do share screen, and your smart attendance number is 346. 346 is your smart attendance number. 346. 346. So let you enter that in 346, and then I go to chat and I type in 346 and 346 like that, and send that to you. Okay, and all right, so let me show you what's going on that's really interesting here, and make sure that I remember to share the screen when it's time to share the screen. And so you can see, oh, that's the other class. So let me close that lesson plan and go to the US lesson plan, which I thought I already had opened. And so we go here, and again, make sure you can see that screen. And I think this is it. And there you can see the share screen. All right, so pro and con. To CUK students, populism is a threat to liberalism. So I sent you my comments back. And Taeyong is going to be pro, and I will be con. And make sure that, you know, we are recording this. So what else to highlight here? Of course, the New York Times is covering extensively the election campaign that's now underway. And just to show you some current events here, let me show the right screen. So stop share, and then share the screen again. And we go here to share screen, and you can see that this is the New York Times website for the politics in the United States. And there are primaries now underway. I should point that out, that we've been talking about primaries. So there are primaries going on right now on, now Tuesday is yesterday in the, here. It's Tuesday, still Tuesday in the United States. So we have primaries. And as I told you, we know who's going to be the Republican and Democratic nominees, right? Trump for the presidency as Republican, and Joe Biden, the current president, for the Democrats. But of course, the primary elections going on in the case covered here, Maryland, Nebraska, and West Virginia, remind us that these primary elections are more than just for the presidential candidate. They're also for candidates for Senate, for House Representatives. And one of your chapters in the Return to Normalcy book does talk about Nebraska. And Nebraska is one of the only 2 states out of the 50 states that do not award all of their delegates in the Electoral College to the winner of the popular election in terms of winner take all, right? Winner take all. Nebraska allocates the delegates to the Electoral College on the basis of the proportion of the vote they receive, although I'm not going into detail about that right now. But just to highlight that Nebraska it says here, a Republican moderate in Nebraska, Representative Don Bacon, Republican, has labored to call a moderate image in this purple tinged district around Omaha. So Omaha is the big city in Nebraska, and that is a swing area. And I think he is running for he is facing a nomination challenge. This moderate Republican, so-called moderate Republican, Don Bacon, from a man named Dan Frey, a conservative businessman from the Trump wing, with the endorsement of Nebraska's Republican Party. So the point is that these primary elections, remember, they're more than just for the presidential candidates. They're for a number of offices, including for congressional representatives, who's going to be nominated by the Republicans and Democrats to run for Senate, for governor, for House Representatives. You know, and again, West Virginia is also having primaries now. So the primary for the presidential nominations has been pretty much decided. We know it's going to be Trump and Biden, but we're still also interested in who's going to be nominated to run for Senate and for the Congress, and also at the state level for the governors of various states. So just to remind you of that. And so let me go back and see what else is covered here in the New York Times today. So we go here and it says, election updates. Of course, Donald Trump is on trial for the payment of money to cover up a sexual relationship with a pornography actress, and this, of course, is covered extensively in the news media. And Trump is not allowed to say anything during the campaign. You can see there's Donald Trump. He's not allowed to say anything during the court case to the press. But he has other people in the audience watching the court case against him who can comment about the witnesses. They can comment about the court case as it's going on, because they're not restrained by the judge overseeing the case from speaking. One of them is J.D. Vance, who is a senator from Ohio, who won the election to be a senator from Ohio a couple of years ago. And he's also Donald Trump. He's a candidate to be Donald Trump's selected vice presidential partner to run as vice president
in the upcoming election. So Trump will probably choose the person, well, in the next few months, of course, Trump will decide who's going to be his vice presidential partner running in the election. And J.D. Vance is getting a lot of attention as his potential nominee. Although I was kind of surprised given how much Donald Trump really needs to win those 6 or 7 swing states that we covered previously in the class. I mean, Ohio is going to vote for Trump unless something catastrophic happens from Trump's perspective. J.D. Vance, although there's not a lot of evidence supposedly that who you nominate as your vice presidential partner running in the campaign for president, that makes a tremendous difference. There's not a lot of evidence that it makes a big difference. I mean, Trump will automatically win Ohio anyway without Vance. If he's going to select Vance, it's because he thinks Vance is going to help him win in those other 6 states or 7 states outside of Ohio to win in those states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, and maybe, I mean, of course, we already mentioned that Nevada is another one of these states that's a swing state that Trump wants to win. I think it's Nevada. And Kari Lake is also mentioned as a candidate, possibly candidate for his vice presidential pick. But I think maybe that Kari Lake, since she's not won any elections, she makes a lot of noise. She gets a lot of attention, but she hasn't won any elections. This person, he actually, he won an election. He actually won the election in Ohio to become senator from Ohio. So we'll watch. We'll see what happens there. As to whether or not he actually goes with J.D. Vance, who's been making comments about the court case against Trump, and selects him to be his running mate in the upcoming presidential campaign. So, but at that point, I think maybe we should go ahead and go to the debate. And Taeyong, you are there, right? Taeyong, where's Taeyong?
Yes.
Okay, Taeyong, do you have something you want to show? I mean, do you want to show something on your computer so I can share the screen with you?
No, it's okay.
Okay, so Taeyong is just going to speak. Do you want to turn on your camera so we can see you as you speak? Okay. Again, you want to persuade people to. There he is. All right, Taeyong. Okay. Everybody else is kind of shy. They don't want to turn on their cameras for some reason. But I think I know why some of you aren't turning on your cameras. But I won't go into that now. But it's kind of cute. But anyway, Taeyong. Okay, Taeyong is going to speak. So I have my cell phone here, and I've got my clock set up here, my clock timer. So Taeyong will speak for 6 minutes, and then I will speak for 6 minutes as Khan, and then Taeyong will reply for 4 minutes. And then I will reply and conclude for 7 minutes, and then Taeyong has the last word for up to 3 minutes. And if you have questions, please raise your hand on the Zoom or send a chat question, and we'll let you ask the question to get an extra credit point. And so with that, I'll just turn it over to Taeyong. So go ahead, Taeyong.
Okay. Populism indeed poses significant threat to liberalism as its core. Populism often thrives on the idea of charismatic leader who claims to represent the will of the people against the alleged corrupt elite. While this may sound appealing on the surface, it tends to oversimplify complex issues and undermine the principle of liberal democracy, such as the protection of minority rights, the rule of the law, and respect for institutional checks and balance. Moreover, populist leaders often employ divisive rhetoric and tactics that scapegoats marginalized groups, undermine the freedom of the press, and erode trust in democratic institutions. This erosion of democratic norms and values can lead to the concentration of power is in the hands of a few, weakening the pluralistic foundation of liberal democracies. Furthermore, populism tends to prioritize short-term gains and immediate gratifications over long-term stability and sustainability. This can result in policy decisions that disregard expert advice, ignore evidence-based approaches, and prioritize the interest of local majority over the rights and well-being of all citizens. In essence, the rise of populism presents the very essence of liberalism by undermining democratic principle, eroding trust in institutions, and fostering populations within society. As such, it is crucial for defenders of liberal democracy to remain vigilant and activity counteracts the spread of populist narrative and tendencies.
Questions? Who has an extra credit question to ask Taeyong? If not, by the way, you can see that there's automatic translation from English into Korean, which Zoom, I logged on this morning saying it's offering a free one-time trial for automatic simultaneous translation. So I don't know if the quality of the translation is very good, but I think this is just a one-time trial. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will make my con statement, and some of you have already seen my commentary because I sent you back my commentary. I set up two copies of my commentary, and one I'm going to present now, and that is no, populism is not a threat. American populism is not a threat to liberalism because American liberalism basically means that you allow lobby groups and interest groups to dominate the American political system. That's what liberalism means in reality in 21st century, 20th century, or even 19th century America. That it means rule by groups, by interest groups. That's what American democracy is. Robert Dahl, a famous political scientist who died about 10 years ago, he called it polyarchy, the rule by groups. And we talked about interest groups in the exercise we had in class, and that's really important for understanding the dominant, not the only one, but the dominant paradigm that we talked about in some other classes. Ashton has been in those classes, so was Emma, right? We talk about corporatism, Marxism, and liberalism. Liberalism is ruled by interest groups, basically. And the dominant interest groups are, I argue in my comments to many of you, is that the dominant interest groups are those vast national security bureaucracy that emerged since the late 1940s in the United States to basically implement the containment policy against the Soviet Union. And this vast bureaucracies include, of course, the Defense Department, which is hundreds, millions of people if you include the soldiers. It includes the national security agencies in all, including the Central Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, which is 5 times the size of the Central Intelligence Agency that monitors all the world's electronic communications. It includes the State Department. It includes the United States Agency for International Development. It includes all of the programs that the U.S. instituted to promote its influence in its perceived competition with the Soviet Union during the Cold War. And that Cold War lasted for 45 years until at least 1989 or into 1991. And this involved, when you sum up all of the money that was spent during so-called peacetime as well as wartime, like in Korean War and Vietnam War, and in the so-called peacetime, that we're talking about thousands and thousands of billions of dollars, thousands of billions of dollars, many thousands of billions of dollars that were spent to create these bureaucracies and to supply these bureaucracies, right? Different companies had to supply the military, American military, with aircraft, with tanks, with ships, with guns, with ammunition, with artillery shells, and so on. And these existed for many, many years, and they still exist. And, you know, we like to talk a lot about in my classes about political psychology and the tendency towards motivated reasoning. People tend to see the world in a way that allows them to feel good about doing and getting what they're getting. the benefits that they're receiving. So if you work in this national security bureaucracy that claims credit for winning the Cold War against the Soviet Union, you see a world that continues to justify continuing that national security containment bureaucracy that's been around, that continues to be around, even though the Soviet Union ended over 30 years ago. So of course you're going to argue that now we need America to play a leadership role in the world so that we don't have any more future threats to humanity like totalitarian communism, right? Or fascism, that America must play a leadership role everywhere, in Asia, in Europe, in Africa, everywhere. We must keep all those vast US military bases, hundreds and hundreds of American military bases all over the world that emerged during the containment policy against the Soviet Union, that they're a good thing, and that we should expand NATO. We should expand it into Ukraine. We should expand NATO into Asia. I mean, NATO is setting up offices in Tokyo and Seoul. Right? AUKUS is really part of NATO, the Australian, United Kingdom, American alliance. And so basically it's the nature of these organizations to want to expand their influence more and more, because that's what organizations do. Organizations defend themselves and they want more resources. And it's not because people are evil or bad. It's just the nature of organizations. Who's going to stand up to those organizations? Right? I mean, if you're China or if you're Russia, you might not view NATO as a peaceful actor. When you look at what NATO and the United States did to destroy former allies of the Soviet Union, like Saddam Hussein's Iraq or Muammar Gaddafi's Libya, and they tried to invade Syria in 2015, but the Russia intervened to protect their old Soviet ally, the Assad family in Damascus. All right, who's going to stand up to these millions and millions of people that have a vested interest in America trying to create a world empire, basically? And it's got to be somebody who can mobilize the American public to challenge those vested interests. And that's Trump, and that's populism. And we could be talking about World War III here if we don't stop this effort to create a world American empire, right? We don't call it empire. We call it the rules-based international order. That's what Joe Biden likes to refer to. The rules-based international order that the Americans and their allies are supposedly defending, right? But they can change the rules when they want to, or disregard the rules when they want to, when they let their Israeli ally engage in genocidal processes in Gaza and prevent the United Nations from intervening to stop it. Right? Or when they invade Iraq in 2003 without a UN Security Council authorization, or bomb Serbia in 1999 without a UN Security Council authorization. So America writes the rules in this so-called rule-based international order, and it can change the rules. Why? Because it's the benign hegemon. Who's going to stand up to this? It's got to be somebody who can mobilize Americans, and that's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a force for peace in the world. Because the Americans are no better than the Germans, the Japanese. They are human beings. They are prone towards nationalistic behavior. And the Americans want to be the #1 actor dominating the world. And that's not going to be a peaceful process. The Americans cannot rule the world. They're going to have to compromise with Moscow and Beijing. And the only one who can pull back America from this escalating conflict with Russia and possibly with China is Trump and his populism. Okay, so anybody have a question? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, Taeyong, reply, rebut, Taeyong.
While populism may claim to represent the will of the people, it often excludes minority voice and promotes a simplistic us versus them narrative. This can lead to the marginalization of vulnerable groups and undermine the pluralistic foundation of liberal democracies. And second, populist readers frequently attack independent institutions such as the judiciary and media and civil society, weakening checks and balance and eroding democratic norms. And this concentration of power can lead to authoritarian tendencies and undermine the liberal principle of the separation of powers. And third, populist movement often targets minority groups and scapegoats for social and economic problems, leading to discrimination, xenophobia, and the erosion of minority rights. This undermines the liberal commitment to equality and protection of individual liberties for citizens. And populist rhetoric often dismisses expertise and evidence-based policy making in favor of simplistic solution and emotional appeals. This can lead to policy decisions that are not grounded in reality and may have harmful consequences for society as a whole. And populism tend to exacerbate social division and polarize societies by demonizing political opponents and promoting a confrontational style of politics. This undermines the real value of tolerance and respect for diverse viewpoints, leading to increased social conflict and instability. And the last, populist leader can prioritize nationalist agendas over international cooperation, leading to tensions between countries and undermine efforts to address global challenges such as climate change, migration, and pandemics. This undermines the rival principle of multilateralism and collective action to solve common problems.
Questions? Who has a question to ask Taeyong? Say this translation that says Chilmoyo nuga mule bulke istneo. Oh, sorry. So you can tell me how good the translation is into Korean language, which maybe, I don't know if this is a good idea. Hopefully they're going to make me try, they're going to try to charge me for it. So if there's no question, nobody's going to raise their hand, ask a question, then I have to make a response. So let me set my timer here and set it to 7 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, my esteemed opponent just highlighted the role of American checks and balances. These checks and balances are still there. If Trump gets reelected in November, and again, I was listening to somebody this morning, some podcaster on the Silicon Curtain podcast, some British writer who lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He's predicting that Trump is going to win in November. The system of checks and balances that Taeyong mentions is still there, right? So let's say Trump gets elected. He tries to do radical things. He's going to be challenged. He's going to be challenged by the courts, right? America's all about courts, and they will challenge him. And of course, if you're going to work in a Trump administration, you better, as we like to say in America, you better lawyer up, right? Lawyer up. That means you're going to have to hire lawyers because you're going to be sued. And I told you, those lawyers are really, really expensive. And so, yeah, there are a lot of people that support Trump that's going to pay for some of those lawyers, maybe a lot of those lawyers. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of legal fees that will be charged as people sue the Trump administration to stop the Trump administration. And but I don't think they're going to, everybody's law bill is going to be paid by these external sources of money to cover the costs of these lawyers. And then you have the Congress, right? You're going to have the Senate. You're going to have the House Representatives. People are what we call ticket splitting when they vote. If they think that Trump's going to win, and of course, going to have all these public opinion survey organizations telling us how close the election is going to be. And people are going to vote for Trump, and they're going to vote for a Democrat in the Senate or a Democrat in the House of Representatives, or both, because they want the Congress to check and balance against Trump. So I'm not even certain that Trump's going to win the Congress. He's not going to win both houses of Congress if he wins at all. He's not going to win, even if he wins the presidency, at least the House or the Senate is not going to be controlled by the Republicans, I think. And even if it is, it's going to be very, very close. And if he tries to do something radical, like take the United States out of NATO, many Republicans are going to try to stop him, right? The point is, America is not like Germany in 1933 when Hitler won the election in 1933, early 1933, to become Chancellor, Prime Minister of Germany. I mentioned in some of my comments to you about how Germany was a very different place from America today. I mean, Germans were in desperate psychological, economic, emotional situation at that time, right? After the trauma of losing the First World War and the humiliation and the cost and all of those World War I deaths and veterans walking around with their arms and face blown off and their legs blown off. And then they lost the war and lost 30% of their territory. And then the great inflation happened in the early 1920s. It destroyed everybody's savings. Money became worthless. And then the Great Depression happened in the early 1930s and people lost their jobs, right? And Hitler was able to exploit that. You cannot understand Hitler unless you understand that context. That doesn't exist in the United States today, right? I mean, American economy is doing okay, doing well. There's some discontent about inflation and like, but Americans are not going to support Trump if Trump tries to do something radical like bomb Iran, I think, or abandon NATO. They're going to stop him. Right? They're going to, and if he does something, and he knows this, if he sends the economy into a recession because of his radical policies, or he tries to do something too radical, in 2 years' time, there'll be another midterm election in 2026, and the Democrats will take control of more of the Congress. I mean, the purpose of Trump is to be a disruptor, to make people mobilize people, to break up the existing status quo. And the status quo is this vast national security bureaucracy that also has these economic and political supporters, right? That have committed America to being committed to Israel, committed to the Middle East, committed to backing up those corrupt feudal ruling regimes in Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates to keep them in power, to giving all this money to authoritarian corrupt Egypt, right? That needs to be disrupted, and it's got because they're all a legacy of the Cold War, right? Anybody who was opposed to communism and the Soviet Union's allies was good from the American point of view, right? And that meant the Saudi royal family. That meant the military dictatorship in Egypt. That meant Israel. Anybody, and so, but that Cold War has been over for over 30 years. So why are we spending all this vast amount of money on defense when there's no longer Cold War? Well, people say it's because you need America to make sure we don't have a new Hitler. There's not going to be new Hitlers. We know that Germany or Japan or South Korea, they could make nuclear weapons tomorrow if they wanted to. Sure, only 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 countries officially, unofficially have nuclear bombs, right? But Germany doesn't have it. But by my next Monday class, Germany could have them if they wanted to. And we all know this. Russia's not going to be attacking anybody in Europe outside of Ukraine. They're not going to attack Poland. They're not going to attack Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. They're certainly not going to attack Germany. Right. The same is true with China. China's not going to attack Japan. Japan could also make nuclear weapons tomorrow if they wanted to. There's at least 50 countries that could make nuclear weapons, but they choose not to have them because it causes, and from their point of view, more problems than it causes. So this view that you need America to prevent a 1930s type style world from emerging again is false. Right? America's causing these problems. NATO's expansion is causing these problems. The United States' desire to create a global hegemony under American empire, unofficially, of course, is what's causing these problems. And it's not going to work. Right? You see it's not working in Ukraine right now. Russia's going to win, and hundreds of thousands of people are going to die to stop NATO from expanding. And it didn't have to expand. Right? But it expanded because you've got this national security bureaucracy that emerged in the United States that makes you believe, and everybody believe, that America has to be the top dog in the world over everybody else, or the world's going to have World War III. And it's not true. And the only one who can stand up to that is Trump and his populism, his ability to mobilize America against America having to be the global hegemon. So I will stop there. And anybody have a question? And if not, Tae-young has the last word. So Tae-young, you have the last word for 3 minutes.
So, in conclusion, while populism may claim to champion the interest of the people, it often undermines the core principle of revolution by promoting exclusionary politics, eroding democracy norms, and threatening the rights and freedoms of minority groups. So As such, it poses a significant threat to the rebel democratic order and requires vigilant opposition to protect and defend rebel beliefs.
Okay, last chance. Does anybody want to ask a question on your Zoom, right? You can raise your hand, or you can send me a message, or you can just unmute yourself and say something on your speaker right now if you want to, on your microphone, if you want to. Nobody wants to. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Well, if not, then let's go back to the share screen, and hopefully I got it. Well, I have to go back to the make sure I open up the share screen correctly. And so then we go back to share screen again, share screen, and there you see share screen. And so you can see the screen, and then we go to the vote. And so scrolling down here on the vote. So please vote now on the use of reading material by con or pro here. And the con rebuttal and conclusion, that's me. Pro conclusion, pro presentation style, con presentation style. Use of weekly reading material, pro opening statement, that's Taeyong's opening statement, con opening statement, and most importantly, who won the debate? Please vote on who won the debate, and also grade the debate and grade the debate. Okay. Oh, we have a question. We have a question. Angela, you can wait, Angela. So Angela, so let me see here. We go to attendance here. You have to excuse me. Angela needs to be corrected here. So there you go, Angela. Okay. So back to the vote here. Okay. And so since we have some time remaining, and what's this? Another? Oh, okay. All right. So, okay. Thank you. So let me go back to the debate topic here, and let me see if I can divide you up on terms of your paragraphs that you wrote, and you saw my comments in response. So we go here to this, then we go like this, and make sure go like this, and we go like this, and see, what is today? Today's the 15th. Stop it. Then we go to 15, and so I go to make it say 9:35, 9:35, and so please vote pro or con, pro and con, and neutral cannot decide, and so go like this. So say, so please vote on the topic here if you're pro or con, so that I know who's pro and who's con. And please do that quickly because we're running out of you've got 1 minute left, 1 minute to vote. So we have 2, 3, 4, 4. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. You're running out of time. Hurry up. 7. Nobody's going to be con. Oh, we have 1 neutral. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Time's almost up. Oh, maybe I can edit it, make 1 more minute for those people who are late. So 1:36, so save. So you have half a minute left. So vote. And I guess maybe that is everybody. Okay. And so who's neutral? Who cannot decide? And it's Sophia. Sophia's neutral. No, Sophia, she's not pro, she's not con. Sophia just
Actually, I wanted to say that I'm pro, but I was like, I misclicked because you said we only have like a certain limit of time. So I was like trying to vote fast and then I misclicked it.
So you're not really neutral. How about you tell us why you think you might be neutral in our debate? Why are you neutral on the debate topic? Sophia.
I'm not, I'm pro.
You're pro. Nobody's
Yeah.
neutral. Nobody's con. That populism is dangerous? Really? You think that what I'm saying is what I said is completely wrong? Nobody was persuaded? Well, that's kind of surprising. I don't know what to say. I mean, no, I don't have an opponent. So, well, let me divide you up here into groups then. So since everybody's pro, I'll go back to stop share and we'll do the magic thing of breakout rooms and assign you to 4 different rooms. Hooray! 4 different rooms, assign automatically, create, and open all the rooms. And so you're go into your rooms. Enter your rooms, join your rooms. And so since we'll use all this great technology, we've got so join your rooms and so let me ask Siri. So who's going to speak for each room first? So Taeyong and has already spoken. So Yerong, Chon Heryong, please join room 1 because you're not in it yet. And Yi Jae-woo, join room 3. You're not in it yet. And so let me ask Siri, pick a number between 1 and 4.
It's 2.
2. Okay, so Enmog is going to speak for room 1. Sophie is going to speak for room 2. Yurim is going to speak for room 3. And Angela is going to speak for room 4. Okay, so you have a couple minutes to help each other prepare to make your statement. And I'll have to be con. I'll have to oppose you. So Pro speaks first. So Enmog, Sophia, what? Looks like it's well, I said Yurim, right? And so Angela, okay. So you have a few minutes to talk and help those people prepare their statements as to why they're pro, despite my brilliant con argument that I've already made, and I want to talk about more about this. So prepare yourselves, and then again we'll ask Siri to pick a number between 1 and 4 to see who's going to speak first. So everybody get ready. You got a minute. I mean, you already, all wrote your paragraphs. So you already know basically what you need to say, but, kind of respond to what I've been saying when I was arguing con in the debate with Taeyong. Okay, all right. So Siri, pick a number between 1 and 4.
The answer is 2.
2. So that's Sophia. Go, Sophia. Make your pro statement, Sophia. Sophia.
I think that populism is bad because it focuses on the opinions and well-beings of the majority and not on like individuals. Which is especially something that could be a problem when Trump will get elected in November. So,
But what about
That's my
rule by
opinion.
the majority, the people? Why are you so afraid of the people? Why?
I just think we should like make sure that minorities also are safe.
Yeah, I know, but that's why we got the courts. That's why we have the checks and balances system. That's why we have the Congress and the Senate and the House of Representatives, the two houses of the Congress.
But
Trump's
we do
going to
know
be
that that's
constrained. He's not going to be abusing people. He's not going to get away with it. He'll be sued immediately when he tries to make radical changes. Just like we know what happened.
do
Sorry,
know
go ahead.
that we do know historically speaking that minorities are not always protected by those laws, even though we have them, because there was always race around it, or they are get treated like worse to begin with, even though we have all these laws to protect them. To say that we have all of that and that's not a problem is not true.
Yes, but wouldn't it be a good thing, Sophia? Wouldn't it be a good thing if European Union and Germany and the other European countries took more responsibility for their own affairs? They need somebody to break this dependency relationship that Europe has developed since the end of the Second World War upon the United States. They need to be pushed.
I think we actually take our own affairs very seriously and we take care of them ourselves in Europe and in the individual countries.
You already do that, you think? Yes?
Yeah.
I don't know, you know. I mean, I think Germany doesn't do anything. Germany is completely dependent upon its relationship with the United States. They don't do anything without, I mean, for example, they want to spend more money on European defense. And you know the Germans going to want to buy American products. They're not going to spend it on European products primarily because they're so desperately, they believe that they can't do anything. Sorry, go ahead.
To defense, because we produce like a lot of weapons and stuff, and we usually sell them to other countries.
Uh-huh. Okay. You really believe that basically Europe as an entity would not exist without American domination, without American hegemony, that the European Union would not be possible, that the only way Germans and Poles and French can cooperate together is because the Americans are there? There's no way Poland would trust Germany without the United States overseeing everything?
I think, like, historically speaking, that's correct, but that was like post-war Europe, and we developed since then like a lot, and things have changed. This is not like 1945 anymore.
Okay, let me then go back to Siri. Siri, pick a number between 1 and 4.
It's 1.
1, okay, 1. And 1 is Enmog. Emog, where's Emog? Emma, that's Emma. Oh, it must be Emma. Emma. Speak, Emma, speak. Why are you pro?
I said that the populism is a threat to liberalism because in some way is in the revocation of the representation of the population by a person that is elected, and in some way the populism is also used for direct democracy, but in a way of it's very violent, and it's tend to revoke all the political and economical elite.
Okay. So the mass of the population is dominated and controlled by other elite groups, is what it seems apparently what you're saying. Is that true? That basically populism is bad because populism is a mobilization of one elite group against another elite group?
It's not like that. It's just that the base of the representative democracy is that you elect one person to represent the entire country, and the fact that it's difficult for the entire population to agree with each other, that we can see in France with in 2018 with the movement of the Gilets jaunes. There is like no person that was agreeing with each other about who will talk with the president about the difficulties at this moment.
Okay, so we only have 4 minutes left in the class time. So let me go ahead now and ask Siri. Siri, pick a number between 1 and 4.
It's 3.
3. So that's Yurim, Yurim, Yurim. Why are you pro, Yurim?
Mm, although populism originated from the distrust of the elite and promote the benefit of the majority, like the public, but it nowadays it is usually like misused, combining with the popularism, and it confuses people a lot and make the public choose not the very equal, if not in the very equal situation. I mean, the public is often like blinded by the politicians who use populism as well as popularism.
So there's, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it is against the liberalism. That's why.
Well, you know, there is a fear among liberals traditionally, historically, about the masses. The mass public does not have a liberal orientation. The masses are authoritarian. There's a strong authoritarian tendency. Of course, we know we have a romantic self-image that we're all about, you know, liberalism, liberal capitalism, liberal democracy. But there's also an authoritarian streak in American culture, and I think I have something here right about that highlights that, how you know, this is an opinion piece that was in the New York Times that highlights that Americans have a strong anti-liberal perspective going back for many generations. You know, in terms of how it was founded by religious radicals, religious authoritarians, and how it and Alexis de Tocqueville, yay, Alexis de Tocqueville in Democracy in America back in the 1830s glimpsed the illiberal currents that already entangled the country's politics. While he marveled at the equality of conditions, the fluidity of social life, and the strength of Republican institutions, he also worried about the omnipotence of the majority. What I find most repulsive in America is not the extreme freedom reigning there, Tocqueville wrote, but the shortage of guarantees against tyranny. He pointed to communities taking justice into their own hands and warned that associations of plain citizens can compose very rich, influential, and powerful bodies, in other words, aristocratic bodies. Lamenting their intellectual conformity, Tocqueville believed that if Americans ever gave up Republican government, they will pass rapidly on to despotism, restricting the sphere of political rights, taking some of them away in order to entrust them to a single man. The slide toward despotism that Tocqueville feared may well be underway, whatever the election outcome in November, with Donald Trump representing a single man who announced his intent to use autocratic powers for retribution, repression, expulsion, and misogyny. Okay, and that leaves group 4, and that is Angela.
Yes. So I note that the 2020 election cycle has been marked by a major challenge to electoral integrity, which are partly due to the populist leader. And there has been a loss of confidence that prevent the proper functioning of liberal democracy, which depend on the acceptance of election result. And by focusing on the will of the majority, populism neglect the right of the minority and the checks and balance that ensure the proper functioning of crime and liberal democracy. So yeah, and as say Seymour Martin Lipsey, while American populists favor democratic participation, its anti-state stance will prevent the protection of individual rights. So this destruct of institution by proposing solutions that are too simple will lead to threat to the principle of liberalism, and populism called into question by the foundation of the liberal democracy. Populism call into question the
Okay, so we're out of time. So let me again share screen, and this time I set up the voting for the debate question as anonymous. So please vote anonymously as to whether or not. Now you can vote anonymously, and let's see if the vote result is the same. Because I know some of you, if you change your opinion, you might not want people to know, because then you might be embarrassed or something. So please vote, and you have until 10 o'clock to do that. And that's it for today. Okay, so let's see, we do have one neutral. We've got one con. We do have a con and a genuine neutral. I assume it's not a mistake. So evidently the debate did influence somebody. Okay, that's it, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot to. I missed to check. Put my attendance code on the cyber campus. So could you check me in?
Okay, got it. All right, that's all. Bye.
Thank you.